What's up, everybody? Welcome to Down the Middle with Max and Los, the number 7 podcast in the world, according to many people. It's not on the news or anything yet, but it will be announced.
That's Trump math right there.
Yeah, the number 7 podcast in the world. So I'm Los, this is Max, and we have some interesting topics today. Where do you want to start, dude?
You pick. I usually always pick.
Let's start with the aftermath of the slap heard around the world. Will Smith, I thought, and I think if you follow the podcast, a little bit of me thought that this was planned, faked, whatever. It was way too much work for it to keep going the way it's been going. Now Will Smith is on hold for the movie Bad Boys 4, which that sucks because I'm a big Bad Boys fan. So funny. This is just a good trilogy and now 4th movie. And Netflix had a budget for a few Will Smith movies. I think $30 million was the budget that he was going to get paid on that. That budget is now, from what I'm understanding, going to reappropriated to other black actors. They're still going to stay on like the black side, but they're just getting rid of Will. So your boy is basically getting shunned by everybody. And really, Jada Smith, Pinkett Smith, I guess, made a comment on a news network, and she was like, "Yeah, I wish he really wouldn't have done that." You know what she shouldn't have done? She shouldn't have slept with one of Jaden, her son's friends, August, by the way, which is kind of like what ruined Will Smith's life. If I was him, I think, for starters, if my wife slept with another dude and put it on television, I think I'm getting divorced, at least. Yeah. Right? Like I'm not in on that. But I think they're just trying to keep making it work, whatever. I feel bad for him because I'm a big Will Smith fan. He has a really great show. Have you seen the Fresh Prince remake?
I haven't, no.
Bro, it's dark.
Is it?
It's not a comedy at all. It's Carlton's a coke addict. There's a lot of like sleeping around and violence and gangster. It's pretty cool, actually. It's like a drama. So watch it because it's actually kind of fun. But yeah, so what do you think of that?
I mean, expected. Like, I at the end of the day, if you, in one of the most televised events in the world, walk onto the stage,
Cursing and slapping,
and physically assault the host on national television and then curse him out from the seats for like 5 minutes. I mean,
it's not going to go well.
It's not going to, not going to go well. And there's going to be repercussions. What's amazing, what I'm more curious about is his mindset. If he genuinely believed that he was going to not have repercussions, because the way he acted after it that night and the next day wasn't the reaction that you'd expect from somebody that just did, like, any normal human being that did what he did would have been like, wow, I got emotional. I really messed up. Like that's a big mess up that I just did. I need to start making some phone calls and doing some things. But he was, partying it up. He was, celebrating. He was having a good old time.
If we did that to each other, it's literally verbal and physical assault. Like that's what, if anybody normal that's not famous did that to, even some certain level of non as famous people did that to anyone else, another famous person. It's verbal and physical. And where things are today, you can't, like everything's so sensitive. This is kind of crazy that it's just like, yeah, it's whatever. We'll just take you off a few movies. And I bet you they're just, the studios are getting a bunch of gripe and stuff from it. So like they're pausing it to like let the moment pass. And then you'll see Bad Boys 4 and, 7 months later or something like that.
Yeah, that's the move, right? It's like, I think nobody's going to, I think Will Smith's too big to cancel. I think there's certain people, you look like Rogan, like there's certain people that are just, they're so big.
You got to take a break.
They have such a massive audience. Like The Rock, like these guys, they have more followers and fans in some countries of population, right? Like you're not going to cancel them. They're uncancelable. And they also have this weird advantage when you're that big and you have that much money. Like you almost don't care. It's like, fine, do it. Chappelle did that.
I'll just retire.
I have so much money. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
So that confidence and that negotiating leverage they have gives them an advantage when they're talking to these studios and they're, I'm sure they went to him and maybe asked them this. They've done this. Other people, big people's like, go apologize, go do this. Probably like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then they called it bluff.
He quit the guild. He quit the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I think it blows over. I think everybody has to do something, right? If you're Netflix, if you're Warner, whoever is the studio that's doing,
take a stand.
You have to come out and say, we're doing something. You can't just sit
Right.
back because you're going to get, a lot of heat in the press. So the easy thing to do is, we're going to put it on pause. We're not going to cancel it. We're going to put it on pause. And then 6 months, a year from now, however long it takes, we'll, re-green light it and we'll go back to filming. We'll be good.
But I've never seen anybody really honestly get in trouble and not come back better. Logan Paul, Dave Chappelle, like people just come back and they're even bigger stars. So I think
it does happen a lot. I mean, even Robert Downey Jr. is probably one of the greatest examples of somebody that was just unhireable for years because he was, an addict and had all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
And, went on to become the biggest, highest paid actor pretty much of all time.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, same type of thing. Yep. He was unhireable and then came
Russell
back.
Crowe.
Russell Crowe. So it's Hollywood is full of people who do horrible things, get shunned for a little bit, then come back and become bigger.
The best.
Which I don't think it's a bad thing. I think this is a weird thing about our society today. It's like this belief that if you do something bad at any point in your life, that's your life. We're cutting it off. You're done at that point. You cannot improve yourself. You cannot do anything to redeem yourself in the future. You did this bad thing, therefore you were done. And that's just not human. Humans make mistakes, and what makes us human is our ability to learn from mistakes and get better. Yeah. That's how civilization moves forward. And so, like, would you rather have somebody like Robert Downey Jr., for example, like, just keep him there? You made this terrible mistake. You did these terrible things, right? Stay that way. We don't want you back. You can never come back. And just, like, he's contributed so positively to the world since he's come back. Right. He's done amazing things, not just from his acting, but what he's done beyond acting, what he's done with his money. Like, I want people to do that. I want redemption stories. I want people that learn from the mistakes and get better. I don't want to live in a world where people think that once you make one mistake, your life's over. I think that's a terrible model.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps you, if that was the model, it just keeps people, I guess, F it. I'm just going to keep being a piece of shit because no one's going to accept me anymore. Yeah. So, yeah. So in other news, thing number 2 here is Elon Musk, the Twitter troll, decided, he made a post and said that he was going to buy, he was thinking about starting his own kind of similar version of Twitter. Instead, your boy just went out and said, hey, I'll just go be the majority shareholder of Twitter. And I don't know what it costs. I think you know how much it was.
It was like $3 billion.
It was like $3.2 billion, something like that. And he owns 9.2% of the shares of Twitter right now. What do you think the play is with that? Like, I honestly, he's such a troll. I could see him doing it for literally shits and giggles.
It's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool to have so much money and influence that you could just buy on kind of a whim. Maybe not a whim, but like
it took a week.
Felt like a whim.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he'd been thinking about it and planning it for a while, but like publicly it felt like a whim. Like, almost 10% of one of the biggest technology companies to ever exist on the planet. Like, that's cool. Like, to me, and people hate Elon Musk, and I
love the guy.
I love him. He fucks around. He makes lots of mistakes. He does lots of shit, but he's human, right? And he's like a savant. Like, he's just somebody that's that smart and operating that level. Like, you can't expect them to be, perfect, right? They're not going to say everything right. They're going to
almost autistic.
Yeah, he's definitely some level on the spectrum there. But he's like when you're like angry you're at a restaurant or a hotel and like you get really bad service, somebody pisses you off, and you always wish like, I'm gonna buy this place and fire you. This place. Like, everyone thinks that at some point. Like, I would love to do that. I would love to one day, even if it was something small, like this dry cleaner. I'm going to buy this dry cleaner because they pissed me off, and I'm going to fire everyone that works here. Right? It's like Batman does it. In the Christopher Nolan Batman's, he buys that hotel and changes the policy. Right? It's like Elon Musk is doing that. He's like, I don't like the way that you're running this company, but I like this company and I believe in the power of it. I'm just going to buy a huge chunk of it, and maybe I'll make some changes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it seems like he's already making some sway and some moves in the company, because he's posted that poll about should we add the edit feature, and the CEO of Twitter came out and said we're talking about it and all this stuff. I think it's funny, like, the outrage that you see some of the Twitter employees like tweeting, like, I'm handing my resignation in because Elon Musk is like, fuck off. Like, seriously, it's just like, quit. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about some mid-level engineer working at Twitter's opinion.
It's replaceable.
On Elon Musk.
Right.
Like, complain all you want, but just you're not going to stop it, right? And it's these people on the policy and they're like, he's going to, ruin it, and it's going to allow more bullying and harassment and stuff. And it's like, no, if anything, he's going to make the platform more transparent, more open, more fair, right? He doesn't have necessarily an agenda, which is why I like Elon Musk. He might have maybe a business agenda, but from a political standpoint, I genuinely don't think he has a agenda. I don't look at Elon Musk as a conservative or progressive or a Republican or a Democrat. He's just a super smart, gifted entrepreneur who
wants to change the world
and believes that stifling free speech and creativity and innovation and conversations and dialogue is a bad thing, which
we agree on heavily.
And the fact that so many people do not agree on it is terrifying. I've been rereading Orwell's 1984 listening to the Audible, and like, it's terrifying. I mean, again, it's a work of fiction, and it's about 70 years old, but like, it is eerily predictive of where we are going today in terms of having this kind of the thought police and everything is so controlled and the ability to write and speak is so limited. Like, it's a scary thing. We'll get to it with like the Facebook token and the reputation tokens and what China's doing with their credit scores. Like, we're on this path to allowing private companies and governments to control what ideas are right, what ideas are wrong, and not allowing you to have free thought and the ability to express free thought. And that's scary. Like, it's a scary time to live in. It's a scary place to live in, especially when it's been proven wrong so many times. Like, I would still be against it, but I'd be more accepting of these actions if so many of these actions didn't turn out 6 months to a year down the road to have been wrong, right? Again, we've talked about this numerous times, example after example of either, CDC undercounting deaths, whether it's Hunter Biden laptop, right? Example after example of these stories, Wuhan lab, where at the time, if you said something that was against the mainstream narrative, you got banned and removed from these platforms, even though the thing that you said turned out to be actually accurate, or at least it was in the realm of possibility at some point. Like the Wuhan lab, we'll never know, but like, it was on the cover of Time, like it became a real viable possibility. And yeah, I think Elon, I think the final thing I'll say in this is you can only keep pushing people so far before something like this happens. And you're seeing it happen with like the Daily Wire, for example. Listen, I think Shapiro is a very, very intelligent person. I listen to him because I listen to his show because I think he has a lot of very smart takes on a lot of issues. Do I agree with a lot of his stuff? No. There's a lot of his stuff, especially on the social side, I disagree with.
But I like his thought process.
And there's other people on the other side I listen to. Like, I listen to people who I think are smart, and I think, I know they're opinionated because they come out and say it. He's not hiding who he is. And I don't have to agree with everything he says.
Yeah, but you think for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. The point of this, though, is like what the Daily Wire is doing is they are building massive potential competitors to mainstream apparatus. Like they have a film studio, they have book publishing. They just launched $100 million fund for kids programming in opposition to what Disney's doing, right? Like they launched their own razor brand because Harry's pulled their sponsorships. So they said, well, we'll just do our own conservative razor, right? And you've seen that Elon Musk buying big chunks of Twitter. Like, you're going to start seeing not like the left that controls a lot of this stuff has this view that everybody thinks like them. And if you don't, screw you, go in your hole and just hide there and do your own thing. You can't, eventually that group gets pretty big. And there are people in that group who have a lot of money and a lot of influence and a lot of intelligence. Mm-hmm. And eventually they are going to start doing their own thing. And I think we're finally starting to see that happen, right? It's like, hey, Elon Musk is like, you know what? I have more money than all of you. I'm just going to buy your companies, or I'm just going to build a competitor to it. And Shapiro's the same thing. Like, we have a lot of money and we have a lot of smart people over here. We're just going to buy companies. We're going to hire these people. You fire this person from ESPN, we're going to hire them. We're going to do sports thing. You fire this person from Hollywood, we're going to hire them. So it's like, yeah, if you're on the left, you can do this. You can cancel people, you can fire people. But now there's people on the other side that are like, we'll hire them. We'll build competitors. We'll put a lot of money into it, and we'll have our own side of it, and they won't like it. And like, that's the world that people have been pushed into building right now.
A last thing on the Twitter thing. Do you think he brings Trump back? Because
It's a good question.
Twitter became what it is today because of those two people alone, in my opinion. Now you got crypto Twitter, and it's become a thing. Twitter was on its way out.
100%.
And those two alone, in my opinion, brought it to where it is today. So
I agree.
It would be kind of like a full circle if he was like, hey, I'm bringing my boy. I don't know if they're boys or not, but I'm just saying, like, boom, if he brings him back, I think he deserves to be back, not for a political point, just for a freedom of speech point. And the fact that he was the president, like, if anybody can't be banned, it should be people that were in office and things like that, at least, right? So it'll be interesting. I hope he does bring him back. I think Trump's doing so well staying quiet, though, that it might even be better for Trump to just not come back. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think the short answer is I don't think he does. I think he stays out of any retroactive unbans on people. I think he genuinely just wants to make the platform better and more open. Yeah. I don't think he's going to do anything retroactively there.
Because it could affect the stock and other.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables there. I do agree with the first thing you said, which is like
those two alone.
Like, people forget, like, it's Twitter's now is become much more popular. But like right around the Trump election, like I was at the time remember saying, like, I think Twitter's not going to be around. I remember like people were selling the stock, like, and Trump 100% single-handedly kept Twitter relevant. Right. That's where he posted everything, right? Trump kept this is like, people love to hate Trump, and I don't like him really at all. But I do have to admit there's an irony to the people that hate Trump the most owe him the most.
Right.
I
agree.
If you're CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, any of these organizations that commit
he kept you alive.
all their company basically to every day writing stories about Trump still, right? It's January 6th. It's never going to end. And they think he's the worst thing that's ever existed on the planet. Like, he also is the reason you guys even have a job.
Right.
Like, it's so ironic and it's so funny, and it's amazing that they can't see this.
I was just going to say that they're blind to that.
CNN's biggest ratings of all time, January 6th. Mm-hmm. The thing that they complain about all the time. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that it was good. I think it was
just statistically.
It was a terrible thing.
Right.
And it deserves to be covered. It deserves to be investigated. But I am saying that just the pure hypocrisy and the irony of you are profiting off the thing that you are calling evil. Like, you profit off of evil. You profit off of division. You profit off of hate. You profit off of these things. And you can't see it because you're doing it every day. And that's how you've done it for, 200 years, all, the kind of American media, right? Like, obviously, as 200 years ago, wasn't doing Fox News, but like media has always been this way, right? Newspapers have always been this way. It's fear sells, division sells. So he doesn't come back. But he's on Truth. It is ironic. Yeah. And we can talk about Truth another time because apparently it's not going very well.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. All right. So what's our third topic?
You had a TikTok one, and then I had the Zuck coin one. So you flip a coin. You decide.
Which one was the TikTok one? Oh no, you brought the TikTok one, which was Facebook, and then that can lead to the other
TikTok
thing,
smear.
the smear campaign.
Yeah.
So what was it exactly?
So apparently Facebook hired a GOP group that has been known to do lots of kind of aggressive campaigns, right, using local operatives. And they hired this group to essentially smear TikTok by finding, and you've noticed there's been a lot of these stories over the last year where it's like every few days it's a TikTok trend kill somebody. It's TikTok trends are like, it's always like a TikTok trend is killing kids. Kids are dying because of TikTok.
Yeah.
Right? You never hear it about like other channels anymore. It's never like Instagram content or Snapchat content or Twitter or YouTube. It's always TikTok, which again I think is crazy because, Instagram, you have all those photos. Like, that's definitely not helping self-esteem for teenage girls and guys, right? There's a lot that all the social media companies are responsible for what's happening with our kids. But Facebook essentially is so threatened by TikTok, they can't beat them. They can't buy them. So their play was, we're going to attack them from a PR perspective and make it think that this is a toxic thing so parents allow their kids on it. That was the play. I'd imagine it's like, make it so bad to the parents, or they take the app away from their kids because they're so terrified that my kid's going to see a trend and they're going to eat a Tide Pod and die, or they're going to do this and die. And like, it's even there was a few weeks ago was like the Orbeez challenge, whereas like kids were going. They were said there was kids like all over the country going around and filling these Orbeez little gel guns with like other things and assaulting people and shooting people with them and all the drive-bys and all this stuff. And there was articles came out after saying like, hey, actually, this wasn't the Orbeez trend on TikTok's actually like doing little fun things with the gel. It's not doing that at all. This was like definitely not a TikTok trend. The dangerous thing wasn't caused by TikTok. So you already started seeing there was somebody behind the scenes like planting these stories and making it seem worse than it was. But it's just embarrassing. Like it's so embarrassing as a company that's how you operate.
It's because they have no shot. And I'm going to digress for a second with it, but this is also a really bad play for the government. So Facebook can't essentially grow more. They create new things. They copied Clubhouse. They copied TikTok. They copy everything because they can't legally go and buy anything anymore, right? Like that's basically the government's like, hey, the big companies can't go out and buy stuff. So while that's happening, TikTok comes in from China and becomes the number one company on the planet, right? For search engine and things like that. And then the government is fighting with American people. And like, for example, another company, Zoom, totally Chinese, coming in and owning everything, getting data from us. And yes or no, they might be doing that or not, but coming in on that. Then you have Shein, who just got $1 billion in funding, which is basically fast fashion, coming in. That valued them over $100 billion. Most of the investors are American companies. Instead of investing in buying American companies, this company now, again, Chinese, which just extremely fast fashion, sends your stuff like drop shipping, really bad. Essentially, they drop ship to each other. You can't do any of this stuff in China because China supports China, wants to like empower China. Instead, we're fighting with each other, not allowing. Facebook could be, if Facebook was allowed to, and I don't like, we're pretty clear that we don't like Facebook. That's one thing that is not down the middle. Like we don't like it. But thinking about it, right? They have to resort to this because they have nothing to acquire. They're broken with innovation. Then we can probably switch to this. They have to move into the metaverse because there's no rules there, so to speak, right? Because the government has kind of put a clamp on them. Like, hey, you can't buy big ass companies anymore because it's a monopoly, because you're owning it all together, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather American companies do this and build more of that than have Chinese companies come in and slowly start taking over and taking over and taking over, which is what you're seeing. I mean, in the next 3 years, $100 billion company, that's going to be twice the size of Nike. And it took 40 years for Nike to be big like that. And now it takes 5 years for Shein to do it and just pass them, which is really crazy because they're going to take people's jobs. And that's a big part of what happens that people don't think. They're just fighting with like the seniors, the C levels of that. But there's so many orders of consequence that happen when you make these choices that we're starting to really see now. And people don't see it, but you'll see it in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think that's a very real threat. And this is, Ray Dalio has talked a lot about this of just, China's the next superpower. America's on the downtrend in terms of
for sure
being the kind of reserve currency and all the things that we take for granted. I think even if like monopoly and antitrust laws were different and Facebook was allowed to acquire any other company, even if it just was too massive, right? And today wouldn't be approved. I still don't think they'd be able to do it because I think every acquisition they made, the founders of those companies regret it. You look at Kevin Systrom, you look at the WhatsApp guys, they've all at some point left and said like, that was a bad idea. Like I should have just kept it myself.
Right.
And then you have Evan with Snap, like
he didn't want to
he turned it down.
Yeah.
So I think Facebook is so toxic and there's been so much bad blood with previous acquisitions that even if they could acquire TikTok, for example, legally, I don't think TikTok would sell to them.
Right.
I don't think Twitter would sell. I don't think any of these companies would sell to Facebook because they don't want to be associated with Facebook. Like, It's a toxic brand. That's why Facebook has to pay their employees. I think now it's like 2 times the average salary of Silicon Valley.
Really?
Because nobody wants to work there. They're struggling to find talent and recruit talent because it's like
so toxic. Nobody
Nobody wants to say I work for Facebook anymore. So it's like you got to pay a premium to get somebody to say that. But yeah, I just think it's a sad state of a company. Like that's something you expect a tiny scrappy startup to be like, we're going to take on the big guys. We're going to do something like crazy like this, which I still think is shitty. But like, you'd expect that from like a company it's David Goliath. Yeah. You'd expect that from like politicians to do that stuff. You don't expect that from one of the biggest companies on the planet that has more cash, more resources, more talent than just about any other company. That they're that desperate
it shows
and that
crazy
scared
desperation.
That's what they're willing to do. Like, that's your play. Like, you can't acquire anything innovative. You can't innovate anything internally.
Right.
You can't get anybody excited about anything. Like, you're not a company anymore. Like, if that's how you have to compete,
you're going
broken.
Down. Yeah,
you're a broken company. Down. That's the way I look at it. It's like, if that's your play,
you're trending.
Yeah, it's pathetic. It's sad, and that can kind of go into our last topic of some of these stories that are coming out about their meta plays and the crypto plays and this idea of a kind of a Zuck buck, which won't be called Zuck bucks, but that's what they're kind of the internal, code name for it, I guess, is because essentially they had that crypto currency
Libra
program they were pushing for a while, and they had Visa, they had all these big players involved, and then they just got shut down. Basically, the government's like, no, we're not. This is not a good idea. We're not going to allow this. Will never happen. So now their play is, well, let's make something that's more like Roblox, like that's more like, it's not real money. It's more like a token. It's more like game currency.
Yeah.
And so you can get Zuck bucks for, posting valuable content. You can get Zuck bucks for engaging in the app. You can get Zuck bucks for doing X, Y, and Z. It also has like a reputation element to it and all this stuff. And it is a horrifically terrible idea. Like, I posted this yesterday. Like, any human being on earth that puts any money into a Facebook-owned currency or whatever it might be, whether it's a actual kind of monetary thing, or even if it's just something that's intrinsic value in the platform, it is just moronic. It is so stupid, because they can ban you at any moment. And I guarantee you, in the terms of service, once they add this, it'll say, if you get banned for violating terms of service,
we'll keep your money.
We're keeping your money.
For sure.
100% guaranteed.
Yes.
And anybody that believes they wouldn't do that, they're already doing that with things like Oculus. So when we got one of our CSRs got banned, again, for no reason given, she's a customer service rep that works for our company, right? She lost all of her Oculus stuff.
Those are $80, $100 games.
Years and years and years. And she's not making a lot of money, CSR, of Oculus games and content and videos and all this stuff. She built this awesome library and loved it. All gone. Like that. You took away probably hundreds or even thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And so it's a monetary thing. Then for me also, it's like, this hit me hard the other day. It was like, I have 15 years of photos and videos and memories that I'd uploaded to Facebook during that time.
You can't even get it back.
Never once even fathoming that I would get banned from Facebook. And it's all gone. I'm sure it's somewhere on the servers, but like, I'll never have access to it. And that is evil. That is a fucking evil move. I think it's an evil company. I think it's a terrible company. And I think anybody that gives them any money for a currency or whatever, you are rolling the dice. Like, I would rather buy Venezuelan debt. I would rather put money into like a third world country's like debt, right? Buy bonds in some, Zimbabwe or something like that, than give Facebook company money. Like, I have more confidence that money is not going to be lost than I do giving it to Facebook.
I think that everything they're doing in the metaverse is going to fail dramatically. And I think that's going to be the knife. Well, not really. I mean, right, there's still a significant, they still make crazy revenue. They just hike up their CPMs. I get it. They're going to be around, but it's going to be a slow death. They're going to be around. That's logical. They have too much money. They still make money. Even though they're making less now, they're just hiking things up. But I agree with you. I feel toxic. I think, even though some of this stuff's going to go on and stuff, it just, you feel a different energy on like YouTube, just as a consumer. And this isn't because we've been banned. Just TikTok gives me like a good pleasure, and videos and stuff like that on YouTube, all positive. You feel better. You feel like more like, and you feel fear as a person that spends media and different things like that. I totally agree with you that I can, and there's no reason to. So let's say there's no reason. So let's just say on a Tuesday, you're just going in because you want to spend some of your Zuck bucks. Hey, your account's disabled. Why? Not going to tell you. And we're keeping all the Zuck bucks because they would say they're they're not cash currency. Like, you just kind of messed up. I can see that happening. And the worst thing about it is that there's no voice, right? Like, no one can. There's so many people like us that like really believe this, but like you can't be heard, which sucks.
Yeah, and what starts to get scary and dystopian, and this is, we can kind of wrap with this thread, is the element in that story about reputation. So one of the things I mentioned was not just you get Zuck bucks for posting and contributing, but it's also ties to like your reputation. What gets really scary is if you have these private companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, right, Apple, that over the coming decades start to have this reputation score, right? They start to have these scoring elements of you as a human being, and more of your commerce and all this stuff happens online and in these ecosystems. Like, who's to say that in 20 years, kind of like Black Mirror, like your reputation is what dictates what hotel you can stay at. It dictates what rate, because they talk about Facebook's once again into small business lending, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't think they want to get into lending, that's a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. So you pay a higher interest rate because your reputation score is bad, right? And some people might be watching this and be like, that's crazy. That's
you
insane.
Should watch the Black Mirror episode. It is exactly what he's saying. I forget the name of it. It's on season 1.
It's their seasons are short. You can go through there. It's pretty clear. I think it was
a girl.
Bryce Dallas Howard. I think it was her before she became really big.
Yeah.
But it was like in a world where currency is your social influence. Mm-hmm. So every interaction you have with anybody, right? Like, I come in to see Lowe's today, like he gives me a thumbs up of star, right? Yeah. 5-star, 4-star, whatever. And your star rating dictates what type of car you can rent. It dictates what type of hotel, what home you can buy. Mm-hmm. It dictates how much you pay for a loan. It's
your credit score. It's your life score.
Yeah, it's what they're doing in China,
it's
basically.
Your account, yeah.
Right? And the whole show is her like losing. She's getting, more and more desperate. And every desperate, she gets like a lower star. And she's like basically, a homeless person by the end of the show because of some bad social interactions and mistakes she made. I don't think we are like crazy far off. I think China's already doing this basically.
Yeah, we should talk about that next week.
And yeah, so I think Facebook wants to do that. And that should terrify you because, again, Zuckerberg has complete control over that company. There's no way, because of the shareholder structure of Facebook, there's no way for shareholders or anybody to remove him. The only person that can remove Mark Zuckerberg from running that company is Mark Zuckerberg. That is it.
He's staying.
That's terrifying.
Right.
That's a dictator, right? If this was a country, we would be saying it's run by a dictator. We need to do something, right? But because it's a private company, it's we're okay. But that private company happens to be bigger than just about every country in the world, has more influence than just about every country in the world. And if they start having their own currency, reputation score, doing loans, lending, all that stuff, like they're going to control more of our life than the government does. And they'll be run by one person.
Right.
And that should terrify the shit out of people. So we'll end on just scaring the shit out of you.
So that is it for today. Please share this on Facebook and Instagram and all the other platforms. Subscribe if you are listening on a podcast, whatever you use, Spotify, Apple, etc. And we will see you guys next week. We're going to Justin Bieber on Monday. We'll give you guys an update on how that show was. We'll see you guys next week. Talk to you soon, guys.
Bye.